I got a phone call, and that's my baby girl, and hadn't heard from her in a really long time. And I'm like, man, of all the times for her to call, like now's the best time. I'm not in jail.
Yeah.
I'm not strung out. And she said, I'm studying to be a paramedic. She said, and we're studying overdoses. And I know you're a drug addict. And she said, you're probably gonna die. And the last time I talked to you, I was really mean. So I just wanted to call you and tell you I love you, but I don't ever want to talk to you again.
Let's be honest about recovery.
The rewards, the challenges.
Let's talk about our failures.
We are flawed people, after all.
Let's challenge the stigmas that weigh us down.
Because while most of us are looked at,
Few of us are seen.
Let's talk about addiction.
And how Christ overcomes our weaknesses.
Because we are loved.
because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
We are loved.
We are
Because
loved.
we are loved.
Hey, I'm Marc Calvert, and this is my story. As a man that lived apart from God, not believing in God, and thinking that anyone that did was a fool, I began to use drugs for the first time at age 16. By 18, I had caught my first felony and spent most of my adult life incarcerated. I found my bottom at age 40, and from there began a journey that would lead me to meeting Christ in a way that I stand before you today, a full-time pastor. In chapter 107, the psalmist writes, as the Lord redeemed you, speak out. Well, I'm here today to speak out.
Hello, welcome to Jesus Loves Addicts. Today we will be talking with Marc Calvert, and this conversation went on for a bit, so we decided to make this a two-parter. So this is going to be episode 1, so please enjoy part 1 of a conversation with Marc Calvert. I've actually known Marc loosely here for a couple years now, and
I think so.
I've heard enough of his story to know that he'd be perfect for this podcast. So welcome, Marc. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
So really just kind of turn it over to you. Not kind of tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you from, and what got you into being the person that you are today.
Yeah,
You know?
a lot of problems.
Been there.
So grew up in South Alabama, born and raised, several generations there. There was a time we lived in Tennessee for a little bit, but, I remember going to church, maybe once or twice. My parents divorced when I was 7, and, my mother pretty much sacrificed her entire life to raise me and my brother, didn't want for much, had a really good mom. I think her worst habit was just decaffeinated coffee.
Right.
She was a good woman. But at work, my dad was around, but it was kind of one of those things where, we had to make the effort to see him. Mm-hmm. And so, I talk about this, and I have before, but, have you remember DARE, the DARE program?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, that was... That made a huge impact in my life, and when I was, I think, in
Like the
6th
DARE
or
officers
7th
coming
grade.
out to your
Absolutely.
school?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dare
it
to
was a
say
big
no.
deal. Yeah, it
This
was
is
a
a
big deal.
joint. This is
Yeah.
a pill.
So it was
Yeah.
really like what I remember, and of course a lot of our memories are inaccurate, but what I remember is like a board, right? And they had like all of the different drugs on
Pinned
the
up
board.
there.
And then us
Yeah.
kids would have to like get up, and then we'd all take turns walking by the board, and they had pipes up there and all that kind of stuff. And, the officers would speak, and I remember, leaving and dealing and interacting in that event or that day, and kind of going home and thinking, drugs are stupid,
Okay.
But due to the turn of events, and as crazy as this sounds, a documentary late at night on MTV swayed my opinion about drugs. And they did a documentary on marijuana, and they talked about how it wasn't physically addictive, and the study and research that they had that said that it kills brain cells was done inaccurately, and just whoever looking back at it now, whoever put that documentary together to sway the viewers did a really good job. And I remember I was up late at night, This was like right around the time late night TV kind of began. For those of us old enough to remember, TVs used to not stay on after midnight, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they used to go off. And so when you could watch TV all night, that was a big deal. And I remember this was one of those weekends watching TV in a room by myself. And I just remember thinking like, all right, I'm going to try it. I remember thinking that vividly, like, because they were saying cigarettes were worse for you, physically than marijuana. And I was smoking cigarettes. But I thought drugs were dumb. But through that influence, I made a decision to try it. And, kind of as things always work out, it was pretty
So
much.
you were a teenager at the time?
I was 16.
Okay.
I was 16.
Do you remember did you have a low self-esteem? Did you have a healthy group of friends? Like, what did your life look like?
Yeah, so I think that my friends were all guys, all older. Growing up and having to kind of chase your dad, if you will, right? It leaves you basically insecure. And I think that when we look at men that deal with pride and anger and all of those things, that insecurity is basically, I believe, to be the root of all of it, right?
Yes.
That it's a insatiable need to validate yourself. It's a strong desire to prove yourself and
I'm
to
enough.
and to be seen
Right.
and to just make a difference with somebody. And so it was kind of like one of those things where I hung out with all older guys, and I always kind of made the additional effort to stand out in that group that I tended to be the youngest, right? And now it really wasn't a great group of friends. I think you were all about pushing the envelopes.
So do you think that was because of just the way your dad was, or it was the divorce that kind of made you feel that way?
I'm not sure, man. I think my dad. I love my dad, and I spent a great deal of time with him as much as I could. I can remember when he would come and pick us up, and it was weekends, and then just maybe sometimes summers, depending on the distance that we lived between him. My dad was a really good friend, but really not a great
Dad.
Father.
Yeah. So he was cool.
Discipline.
I was lucky, man. Like now he we went scuba dive. I got certified to scuba dive when I was 13. Became spearfishing. We began spearfishing at like 14. He had a nice boat. Was water skiing at 4. Slaloming at 5. Barefooting at 8. We were always out on the water, always having
Y'all
fun.
were hangout friends and buddies.
And so thankfully, my dad liked to do cool stuff. And if I hung out with my dad, we were going to do cool stuff. But what we were going to do is what he was doing, So it wasn't anything specific for us. And if we didn't want to do that. He
wasn't coming to your baseball games or?
No.
Okay.
But yeah, man, like that. So when I made that decision based on, that documentary, the following day at the bus stop, I had that opportunity. It presented itself.
That was quick.
Yeah, it was. It was really quick. And, first experience with marijuana, it's a bus stop, 6:00 in the morning. It's dark outside. This guy comes. He has a joint. We smoke it on the way to school, happy, got hungry, then got sleepy. And the thing about it is, and Ross, we talk about, gateways, right? Like especially marijuana.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that we always have to classify marijuana as a gateway. One, it'll never be enough, right? And we're always going to transition into something else. But going back to the inception of it, like in the Reagan administration, when the DARE campaign and the Just Say No kind of hit the scene, the war against drugs, they classed marijuana into that class 1 narcotic, right?
Schedule 1. Yeah,
Schedule 1. And so like growing up in the years that I did, born in the 70s, raised in the 80s and 90s, you thought drugs, it was crack, cocaine, marijuana. And so to step out in that marijuana and have that experience, my mind was like, okay, well, this is drugs. Well,
what else are they lying about?
Well, let's try some more. And the very first year that I tried marijuana for the first time was the same year I tried cocaine, ecstasy, mushrooms.
And that's unfortunate I go back to that documentary that you saw. correct me if I'm wrong, but I bet you their goal was probably to try to start changing the laws. Trying to change the mindset,
public opinion.
But as a 16-year-old kid,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think.
all you heard was, "Hey, there's
It's
nothing
not that
wrong
bad."
with it."
Yeah. I mean,
You can do it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hear. Well, you hear what you want to hear, and yeah, I'm sure there was tons of layers of ulterior motives there, but the fact of the matter is, it led me down a road to consider it.
That's very similar to my story. I mean,
Yeah.
it was probably not even a year after I did marijuana for the first time that I was doing hardcore drugs.
Kicked the door open on it, right? And but didn't get like, for me, trying to do the cool drugs because I wanted to be cool for the guys. So and it stayed. Drug use stayed consistent in my life from that point forward.
So it was a social thing too. Your friends were doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think I remember like kind of going back and going, oh my gosh, like I didn't know this many people did drugs until you started doing drugs, and then it just kind of opens up the blinds to this room.
You've got a whole different set of friends.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the ticket to get in that group of friends. Yeah.
Well, and for people listening that may know nothing about addiction, and when you say, well, you did the cool drugs, it's the ones that appeared more socially acceptable.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
You socially were not smoking crack.
Right. And I think that's a way for us to, and in the beginning, and I think in the beginning of anything, right, you want to, and you don't look at it this way in the beginning, but looking back at it, it's all you're trying to do is control the chaos, but I mean, it's chaos. You can't control it. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff that we do in our addictions to hold on to some semblance of pride, in something that we became lost in more than one way. But
and the pride and that illusion of I'm still controlling it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But through the course of all of that, at 16 tried drugs for the first time, 18 got my first felony. Went to jail, was looking at a lot of time.
I'm assuming, like, what was that arrest?
Caught a felony for, it was 1996 or 7, and I was with some guys that broke into a house.
Okay.
And, and then didn't really understand what was happening, didn't understand the gravity of the charge. And then once I got in there, they were trying to give me, 12 years. And, my mother kind of went into her savings and went all in on an attorney. And they gave me a year in the county, 7 years probation, and then 750 community service hours.
It's a lot of hours.
Yeah, it was a lot of hours.
So your mother, was this a surprise for her, or she knew you were messing up? Or
I mean, when I started using drugs and my mother was trying to raise us, I can remember, I remember a time where, and my mom, you got to understand, like, she knows nothing about anything like that, right?
Yeah.
I remember she come home one day and found, we had a friend that grew marijuana, and we would go, his dad did, and then we would go basically rob the guy's field. And so, but we would come home with like homegrown marijuana, and we had it in my room, and my mom came in and found it in our bag and had no idea what it was. And my stepdad at the time, he's still he's my dad now, but he had to tell my mom what it was. And
she actually found your pot and didn't know what it was.
Yeah, did not know what it was. Did not know. And my whole thing was, Mom, it's natural. It grows from the ground. There's nothing added to it. Sure. It's good. I was like, it's not like I'm doing cocaine or anything. Good. Well, then the next day she comes in and she finds a sink full of mushrooms. And she's like, what is this? And, my dad's like, tells her, and my stepdad, and she's like, and I'm like, Mom, it's natural. It grows out of the ground. We're not adding anything to it. It's not like I'm doing cocaine. And then literally the next day, she goes out into my car
and finds cocaine.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. And so,
were you the only one? It's you and your brother. Was your brother involved in any of the things?
Me and my brother are night and day.
Okay.
Yeah, he graduated magna cum laude, and he's on, I think he's just moved out of New York City, and has bought a house in San Francisco. Works for a really large advertising company. Yeah. Okay. Me and him are nothing. He'd never been arrested, never had any trouble. Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. night and day.
I think we all have one of those. I do.
So they gave you a year.
Yeah, that time, and then put me on paper, and then
So
probation.
how did that year change you? I mean, you're 18.
Yeah,
you do a
18.
year.
Yeah, it hardened me. I think in that you look in that mindset of trying to validate yourself, trying to get, impress your friends, do all those things, and now all of a sudden you're in a situation where, confinement and incarceration is not a place you can hide. You can't close the blinds. You can't run away. You can't, who you are is who will be seen. And so, I became somebody that was, that was able to kind of make it through that situation. And, as sad as it is, adapted almost too well probably in that environment, working in the prisons now, I tell the guys all the time, is like, man, the one thing that I pray that all of you do is never get comfortable in here, right? Man, because this is not a place you should be comfortable. And once you are, you need to really examine yourself, right?
Right.
So,
But that's the same with coming to rehabs too. It's the same kind of thing to where it's like, if this has become all too comfortable for you, you really need to take a look at
like
how you're living
what
your
becomes
life.
your normal, right?
Right.
Like, so that started, when you go for the first time and it's a year, man, you settle into that. I mean, you kind of have to, right? People that's done time knows you can't be in there and out there at the same time. You just got to settle in, and it is what it is. And, people don't too much like to hear other people complain when you're in jail. And being in jail is a lot like being in Walmart at 2 o'clock in the morning. You'll always feel a little bit better about your situation if you just look around a little bit.
You're right. I've never heard it put that way, but that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
I do remember my mom saying once when I was in jail, she was like, I know that you're fine. You adapt well to any situation, including jail, Kathryn, and that should bother you.
Yeah.
And I took it as a compliment. I was like, yeah, thanks. It was not,
Yeah.
but I was. And it's exactly what you said.
You do what you got to do.
It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you play your spades.
Yeah.
You worry about your canteen.
Yep. Yeah. And so, but.
So was there any thought of, I need to change my life at this point?
No, not at all. I mean, we had, at that time, my grandmother passed, and was notified of that in there. I remember, one of the guards coming back there and get me and saying, you got a phone call. I said, who called? And they said, your mom. And I said, well, they're in a cruise in Alaska. Like, my mom's not calling. And I knew something was wrong. And so, my grandmother and my grandfather on my mama's side, helped raise me. That was, my grandfather was like my dad. And, me and my grandmother were really close, and, I had to deal with that. And then, I had a child, at that time, and, like right before I went, and it was just a very not good situation. It wasn't with the mom, and, at that time. And, and I think for anybody that realized or, has been incarcerated for an extended period of time, and a year's not really a long time, but it is at 18 for your first time.
Yeah.
Sure.
And especially for those things kind of transitioning with loss of life and then an introduction of life that is yours and all this, but you're in a place where you can't do anything about anything, right? Like you are absolutely just left
Powerless.
to...
I was going to say powerless,
And so what happens is you kind of have to detach from reality. I mean, and I remember a time that I was doing a 3-year stint in a Louisiana state prison, and I remember calling home and checking on the family, and like my mom is raising 2 of my children. One of them was in the hospital, suicidal. The other one was self-harming. My youngest was with her mom, homeless, living in a hotel that didn't have anybody in the room. She was kind of cleaning the rooms, and she would stay in the rooms that weren't rented out. And they were kind of having, I think it was around Christmas, and they were having Christmas with a prostitute that was in the rooms. And my mom was just about to go crazy having to deal with all of it. And I remember hanging up that phone and then 5 minutes later being at a card table and laughing. And I remember stopping myself and like, what is wrong with me? Like, how can I be sitting here laughing when I just hung up with the phone with all of those things happening in my family while I'm in here? But what are you going to do? I mean, and I think that, you know, for me, once that felony charge happened at 18 and that 7 years of probation, and then I felt like I was in Florida at the time until we left and came back home to Alabama, and then just cannot continue to violate probation and go back to jail and just.
So you were in the system and never got out,
right?
Yeah.
I've spent most of my adult life incarcerated, and you know, and I never got sentenced to like 30 days, or you know, it was always 6 months, 8 months, a year, prison, you know, and then just when you're, you know, most holidays was just incarcerated. It just kind of does something to you. I mean, it just separates you from like where you can just turn off. Like the world could fall around you and you just turn it off and like it doesn't bother you. And yeah, I think, you know, looking back at the course of my life, man, what a hard heart. Like nothing bothered me. Right.
Well, it's turning it off, but it's also almost like a unconscious self-preservation.
Absolutely.
I'm so far from that, and you can hear them, but like you said, there's nothing you can do. And I almost feel like, in a way, it goes back to like you're flashing back, like when you're talking, "Hey, Mom, you're in prison again. You're in jail, whichever." And they're living life, and life is happening, and people are living, people are dying, people are getting in trouble, people are getting promotions and all these things, but your life stops a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so you're still remembering the mom that worked so hard for you, and she's probably fed up.
For sure.
But she's going to answer the phone,
For
you
sure.
know?
Yeah.
It's a weird time warp thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you don't have a car to get into and shake the feelings off, right? You can't talk to anybody there about it because
Absolutely
you just
not.
are perceived weak. Nobody wants to hear anybody else's problems, and so
We all got problems.
yeah, we all got problems. And you know, what are you doing complaining about, you know, your 5 or 8 year bid when you got a guy sitting on the rack since 1999? You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, like, so you just. It will either break you or it will turn you into someone you would rather not be.
I'd like to take a moment to recognize a major podcast sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by America's Thrift Stores, your go-to option for decluttering and giving back. If you have a closet bursting at the seams or a garage that's seen better days, we've got the perfect solution for you.
That's right. America's Thrift Stores makes it easy to clear out the clutter and make a positive impact in your community. Whether you're cleaning out your wardrobe, downsizing your living space, or just looking to give back, America's Thrift Stores has you covered.
And here's the best part. You've got options. Schedule a hassle-free home pickup, drop off your items at one of their convenient donation sites, or swing by an America's Thrift Store to donate in person. No matter which way you choose, you're making a difference.
Absolutely. Every donation you make to America's Thrift Stores directly benefits charities in your area, such as the Home of Grace and other fantastic organizations dedicated to helping those in need.
For example, donations made to America's Thrift Stores in southern Mississippi help the Home of Grace provide support and assistance to individuals facing drug and alcohol addiction. Your contributions make a real impact on their mission to provide freedom from addiction through Christ-centered recovery. So not only are you decluttering your life, but you're also helping build a stronger and more supportive community.
It's truly a double blessing. So what are you waiting for? Clean out that closet, clear out that garage, and make a positive difference in your community by donating to America's Thrift Stores.
Visit America's Thrift Stores online to schedule a home pickup, locate a donation site near you, or get directions to one of their store locations.
America's Thrift Stores, where giving back never goes out of style.
I remember getting to a point where I just felt like I would never not live that life. Like, every time I went back to prison, I was like, okay, well, this is probably going to be my last one. Like, there's going to be some things that I'm going to have to do, to keep my head up, chest out, and shoulders back while I'm in here to, that'll probably run me in the wall. And it is what it is. And, I just remember within that last little bit of that season of my life, just kind of saying, all right, this is my life, like, how did I get here? I don't know. But we're here. So,
right.
But yeah, the year that I found my bottom, I had been to prison 4 times that year on technicals. So in the state of Alabama, if you're out on parole and you violate without catching a new charge, like not reporting an address change, failing a drug test, not reporting, which I had done all, and then got hit because I was high on spice in the parole office. And even though I didn't fail the test, I was passed out.
They knew you can't hide that.
I was passed out.
It's done. Did you ever actually have a drug of choice, or you were just equal opportunist? Didn't it?
At the end, so my addiction to methamphetamine happened through a relationship. And, I was married once. I've been married once. And I remember within that relationship finding out that she used meth and, or ice or whatever you want to call it. And I was like, no, and literally kicked her out. And then we reconciled, and then she came back, and then we ultimately got divorced, and then I fell in love, with the mother of my child, my youngest, and I didn't realize she was a really good functioning addict, ate, slept, job, all that, and I had no idea, and I didn't really like it because it kind of had a stigma to it. People would look at it like I looked at meth like people used to look at crack, ooh,
Yeah.
And but then what happened was I really legitimately fell in love, and in a real way. And we were working together and living together. And please understand that I've never, up and until I got saved, I did not believe in God, at all. And if I believed that you did, determined you to be foolish. So God was not ever anything that was ever considered in my life, and nor biblical principles or anything like that. So, and then once I found out, what I realized is that there was a whole nother life on this other side of her with all of these other people. Me, and who everybody is that's important in my life.
Right.
Because they're in my life, and you are as well. But then
she had a secret life.
Oh yeah. A whole bunch of and then it was okay, do I, and
so you're in love with this woman. Yeah. So you want to know that part of her life.
Yeah. So I'm in my 30s, and we're,
And at this point, how many children do you have?
3.
Okay.
Yep. And yeah, so I'm just okay, well, do I want to not do this and know that she's going to places that I'm going to be unaware of, doing things that I'm not going to know about, being around people that I don't know who they are? Or am I going to participate and be included in her life? And at that time, before you really dip your toe in that world,
yeah,
you really, there's a lot of, oh man, well, I'll do it with you. And, and I was always working in never managed I used to say all the time, I could get anything I wanted, but man, I couldn't keep nothing. You know what I mean? Getting it wasn't a problem. Keeping it now, I always had a problem with that. But, at that time in my life, did finance and insurance at a car dealership, was an internet manager, general sales manager, at dealerships, and I mean big, nice dealerships, nice offices, paid for vehicles. Demos that I would drive anything I wanted. Sure. I mean, a nice pay plan, nice stuff, and was validated myself in that profession. Like it fed my ego, man. It was all about who's better than who and who can do the best job, and you were rewarded, and you lied for a living, and yeah, I mean,
right,
yeah. I hate it now, but yeah, just kind of made a decision to say like, okay, well, let's figure out what's all really going on. And so I hung out with it.
So what you're saying, if I'm hearing right, your decision to get into that life was more out of being in love with this woman than coming from an addict mindset.
Yeah, and I mean, and I got high, but getting high was fun, I mean, like, okay, let's go have some. It's like, and that's kind of what I looked at it like, why are you hiding this from me? Like, I'm fun, like, like, come on, let's go. I mean, let's get turned up. Let's turn up. And man,
not realizing what you were getting into.
No,
yeah, yeah,
no. And I had dipped my toe in it one time with my ex-wife, but hated it. But her and I were like on the way out, and I never touched it again with her. But it was just, but then now here I am in a different situation, and they were doing it different. They were smoking it, and my ex-wife used to just snort it. So I mean, when it was with her, I just hit a bump, and then it burned, and it was not like cocaine, and I did not want any more. I was like, I'm good.
I'm through.
Yeah, I'm through. I mean, so it wasn't a problem. Now, they're smoking it, and I smoked weed all the time, and so it was that.
I can do this.
Yeah, so that was kind of, that opened it up in a way that I didn't even know that you know what I mean? Like,
honestly, I don't think you even expected to like it because you had done it once before, and it really didn't matter, so you knew you had it.
Yeah.
You were fine.
Yeah, and I can literally remember being a weekend and then waking up Monday going, hey, we probably should get some more. I'm tired. I go to work. And then Tuesday, and her going, you need to go to bed. And me going, I hear you. I will. And then literally like getting the number from, for the guy that had it. And then I can remember buying enough for us to do it, and then buying enough for us to do it while I did it when she didn't want to because she was asleep because she was managing it, but I wasn't. And then getting enough for like where I was keeping it away from her and like, by myself. And and it was just bad. And then
there wasn't a dipping your toe off into the water. You literally just dove head first and crashed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And didn't even know it.
No. And then it was like, I hated the way that it had me. And so, and then she managed it really well. And then, so I'm like, okay.
I don't understand those people.
I've never
been
that person.
Yeah. Sorry. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just, and really from someone now, and as well, right, that we work in this field to help those people that need, us as in their life the way that we needed us as in our life.
Yeah.
The functioning addict is the hardest one to help.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's almost better that you just go head first into the floor.
Right.
Because I think they still have
because then you
control.
can't get into to argue about,
Yeah.
But
not enough consequences.
I do admissions here, and those are the toughest calls with the mom's calling crying, right? But the loved one is self-supporting, hardcore drug addict, and they have no problem with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, man,
I hadn't lost anything. I go to work.
I don't know.
I pay my bills.
Yeah.
We can't want it more than you.
And it's like you need to start praying.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Praying mamas will make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. There's so much power in prayer. It's unbelievable. But yeah, so just spiraled out of control, man, from there, and got really toxic, bad, violent.
Your relationship, you mean?
Yeah,
okay.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Second guessing everything, thinking the worst all the time, complete paranoia. Just, then
making
lose
connections
jobs,
that weren't there.
You did say y'all have a child together. Where was that child?
Oh, like in the midst of all of it.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at that time, I was, throughout the whole relationship, throughout my whole adult life, always like on some sort of parole or probation. And so there was monthly requirements and obligations to that. One of the main ones of concern was the urinalysis test, right? And but ICE has got this trick bag mind thinking that it's out in 3 days, but then no one can ever quit for 3 days. And but you think that you kind of trick your mind into saying, okay, well, we can use all the way up to 72 hours. But so Spice was something that I really kind of began using because it never showed up on drug test. And so Spice and Ice throughout the course of those latter years of my life became the drug of choice because I would, could go up really high and then come down really hard on the ice. I mean, on the Spice would get me down. And then that was a pretty dangerous combo.
Mm-hmm. Were you working?
Yeah, a lot. Dude, listen, man, the Spice, I think the Spice became more of a drug of choice for me at the end because I just hated the way I looked on methamphetamine, like, couldn't eat, up for days, like run from mirrors.
Tweaked out, yeah.
Yeah, man. And then, but the Spice, I could eat as long as I had it. And, and so, but I lost a lot of jobs from that, like really, really good jobs. Paid very well.
Just not showing up or them knowing?
No, I was there. I was just not the way I needed to be. Okay. I mean, like passed out at my desk. I remember I had I worked for Butch Ostelet, Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury, and Mazda, and I was the internet director for all of them. And I must say, Butch Ostelet is probably one of the best guys I've ever worked for. I mean, for the car business, he had guys there and people in his dealership that had been there since 1978. And like you never see that in the car business. It's always like a high turnover.
Right.
But he paid really well. He took care of his people. He loved his people. It mattered to him. And great pay plan, great guy. And just passed out in the desk. I was buying it from the guys in the detail department, and so that's I had to go to work to get it. I mean, I'm not going to miss work, and and then
perfect
and so when I finally got fired from that job, I was driving a demo, so it was a nice Lincoln. I was living in Alabama, driving to Mississippi, and to the car lot every day, and it was so high I ran out of gas in the demo, and then I had to call the lot guy that moves the cars around to come pick me up. And by the time he got to me, I was passed out behind the wheel because I was smoking while I was waiting on him to get there, like thrilled. And then so you can imagine like living that life on probation and parole, like you're not staying out of jail long every time. Right. And so just her and I couldn't stay away from each other, but just couldn't be together long. Like I used to always say, when I loved her to death, I just wasn't sure whose death it was going to be first, mine or hers,
Right.
And came home from prison the last time. Like I said, I'd been there 4 times on technicals. In Alabama, when you violate technically, they send you back on what they call a dunk, which means you go back to prison for 45 days. But you've got to sit in county for a few months, then catch the train, then go up, get your head shaved, go through processing, sit there, for 45 days, and then I'll release you. And I had done that 4 times, and then came home that last time, and just came home to learn some stuff I wasn't nowhere near able to handle, wasn't ready for, flashed out. And then went like on the run, like from the police, got called from a domestic situation. And I had ran from them 3 times recently that week. Like it was popping off. Like when I came home, literally came home to just wide open. And so that last night they were chasing me on foot. I leave. I cut through this little trailer park where we were, and I stole this little girl's bike, man, out from in front of her trailer, and trying to get away, and was pedaling it so hard that the handlebars popped off of it when I was coming around a curve, and I slid off this little girl's bike and into a bush, and it was like a briar patch type bush. And man, the cops went by, and I remember kind of sitting in that bush. Like when I slid in there, I was kind of thinking like, I'm in a pretty good little spot right here. As I joke all the time and I say in my testimony, everybody knows that it's lived that life. If you're going to get away from law enforcement, you can't run. You got to hide. That's the key.
Yeah.
So when I slid in that bush, I was just like,
I'll just hang out.
I'm gonna sit right here. And and they were kind of looking for me and going back and forth. And man, it's crazy. It's like if you'd asked me, would you ever steal a girl? I'll steal a bike from a little girl.
You would have said no.
No, I probably would have fought you. Like I'd have been so mad that you even asked me.
I wouldn't dare.
Yeah. And then
when I think of you sliding into that bush, though, I just think by then I'd be so tired.
Dude, I had been up for some days, and yeah, man, life was not good. And so I'm hiding. I'm covered in cuts. I've got some backpack on. I don't even know why, because there wasn't nothing in it.
Yeah.
I'm coming from some place that was absolutely no good for me. I've got nowhere to go. I'm literally wearing clothes that don't fit anymore. And I remember that my watch beeped, and it was so loud. Like that watch beeping in that bush. And it was crazy because the cops were like 300 feet away going up and down the street. Their radios in the car are probably on, whatever. But in my mind, that watch was fixing to send me back to prison. And so I covered it thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't want the light to be on, and then peeling my hand back very slowly to make sure there wasn't a light on. I noticed that it beeped because it was midnight, and I was 40. It was my birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was just like, yeah, dude, I'm done, bro. I'm done. 40. Where did
40 years
that go?
Yeah.
What happened in my 30s? And I'm not doing this no more. I don't even know how I ended up here. And I just was like, all right, it's a new day. It's midnight. Today's my birthday. Today's the 12th. I was like, I'm not going to let today be like yesterday was. And so I just made a decision. I broke in that bush, man. Straight broke. It was over with. So, as they say in prison, over with.
Yeah.
And I just made a deal with myself to do any and everything I could to get somewhere else and do something different. Now, I did have to stay in that bush till shift change. And so I stayed there till 6 p.m. or 6 a.m., to make sure that they were done and that the ones that were mad about not finding me were, off shift. And I crawled out of there and then just made my way to a friend's house that I'd done some time with, knocked on his door, and just started making phone call until I finally got somebody over there with a truck to pick me up. And, of course, that truck was stolen. And then I'm just like, you know what? We're probably going to go to jail, but I was stuck in a bush, for the better part of, 6-7 hours. Then I was stuck at old boy's house trying to get a ride, and now I'm in here and we're moving. And so for me at that point in my life, I just was trying to get from one problem to another problem as long as I was moving to problems. I didn't want to be stuck in a problem. I was okay with moving to another problem,
Yeah.
And so we're mobile, we're in a car, we're in a vehicle. All right, that's fine. We'll work this out. And then what was crazy is that the truck that this young lady was driving was a truck that she had got from somebody that had gotten it from somebody that wanted to get high. Mm-hmm. And, they trusted the wrong person to go get it.
Yeah, rented the car.
Yeah. And so they're blowing her phone up, obviously wanting, the vehicle back. She's manic, been up for some days. And she finally, man, we're just going down the road. Her phone won't stop ringing. And she just pulls over on this dirt road. And she's like, you can have this truck. I'm out of here. I'm not da-da-da-da. And she like literally like, I can't make this up. It wasn't a cornfield. It was like a field with like really tall grass. And like, she just gets out, grabs her book bag and just disappears into the grass, man. Like, and I'm just sitting in this dirt road with the keys to this truck in my hand. And I'm like, all right, this is how I'm getting out of here. And so I go back and I look at the tag and it's in date. And I, get in it. It's got gas. I'm like, all right, I'm gone. And I was in South Alabama where we had grown up. But like 20 years before that, my mom and my stepdad had gotten and bought property over here in Mississippi, and they had left, And, I was just too problematic. I mean, they're gone, And my grandfather had passed away, and they left. And so they're in Mississippi, and that's all I could think of was like, just get to mom's, Hadn't seen her in forever. Of course, when you're in the world, you don't ever call them. You only call them when you're in jail and blow them up then. But, hadn't seen her in a while. And I was like, I just got to get to mom's. And so, yeah, on the wings of angels that I did not even believe in at the time. And that's a whole podcast, that truck ride. But coasted into my mom's driveway at like 2:00 in the morning, running out of gas as I arrived and walked in. It was just like, I'm home. And that's kind of where recovery started for me.
Before we go any further, let's take a minute to address the man or the woman listening to today's episode and wishing for a better life. Or maybe addiction has completely overtaken a family member or a friend.
You are not alone. As you may know, the Jesus Loves Addicts podcast is produced by the Home of Grace, a Christ-centered addiction recovery program in South Mississippi with over 60 years of experience.
The Home of Grace has residential programs ranging from 30 days to 12 months. With 2 separate campuses for men and women, they are fully staffed with caring individuals who want nothing more than to guide you to a life of recovery.
Services include individual and group counseling, marriage and family counseling, classes, workshops, GED, and workforce training, all grounded in biblical principles.
And because of donations from the community, the cost of the program is incredibly affordable.
Thousands of alumni from across the country can tell you there is no other program in the world quite like the Home of Grace.
If you want to start a new path to recovery, don't wait. Speak with an admission specialist today. Visit homeofgrace.org or call 833-55-GRACE to talk with someone.
That's 833-55-GRACE. Call the Home of Grace today.
Had you, other than jails and institutions, had you ever gone to treatment or tried to get clean? Anything? Okay.
Didn't want to. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
So you said that's how recovery started. What did that look like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I had no idea, really what it was. And so for me, it was just doing anything I could that was tangible, accessible, available for the purpose of betterment. Like if I could get to it, if I could close the gap between whatever a resource that I determined to be good for me was, then I would do it. And if I had to go sit somewhere for 3 hours to get one thing, I'm down. I mean, like I got nothing else to do. And I was okay with, saying I need help. And that it kind of began to look like a psychiatrist, a psychologist, therapy as often as I could get there. If they would see me 3 times a week, I'd go 3 times a week. Created a gym out there in my backyard with like a prison set up and just began working out every day. Found a local NA meeting down in D'Iberville and just kept going.
You were doing everything you could to have a different life.
Everything. Yeah. And then kind of really started going down rabbit holes on my phone. because, our phones, it'll tear you apart, but it'll also, like you got a $250,000 education on your phone if you utilize it the right way. And so I just started going down rabbit holes of like human behavior, body language. I wanted to know why I was doing the things that I was doing. Why were people able to do the things they were doing to me? I mean, I had betrayed people, and I had been betrayed at like the highest level by the ones closest to me. And so it was like, how do they even do that? And how do I tell if they're doing it again? And so I got into body language, then got into a subset of that called eye language, and started to I just began learning and just getting immersed in as much free education on my phone as I possibly could, taking classes, started as many certifications. I didn't care, what they were. I've got one on my wall at the house called Coffee Cup Counseling. I mean, what is that? I don't know, but I got it. So just wanted to learn. I think that being a mental health professional now, and pastoring a church and running the alcohol and drug program at the prison, having the men's home, all the things that God's allowed us to do in our ministry. I think you look at it, right, and people truly change for two reasons. You really, you learn enough that you want to, or you hurt enough that you have to. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and for me at that moment, it was like I hurt, so I needed to, and then I learned as I went forward so that I continued to want to. Because there's something about getting away from all the stuff that was bad for you. You begin to never remember it the way it was when you left it, mm-hmm. right? You romanticize it and all of those things. And
sure.
So, yeah,
it wasn't that bad.
But now here's the thing, man. My dad, like when I get to my mom's, right? So mom, she's just glad I'm home. Like I didn't have to do anything. My dad, my stepdad, he kind of like had some requirements of me because I'm there in their house. I'm an adult child, and so in his life, when they came to Mississippi, God got a hold of him, and he became ordained. They started coming to church over here. They never went to church when we were in Alabama or anything like that. But when they came over here, they found a church. They got going. God got a hold of my dad. He got ordained, and then felt a call to ministry. Went to New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, became a pastor, and started pastoring a church. And then he's a bivocational pastor, and then ended up getting a promotion at work. And then the church that he was at kind of closed. It was, I don't remember exactly the details. I wasn't around when it happened. But anyway, when I kind of popped on the scene, he was a supply pastor, right? So he was on the list at the Gulf Coast Baptist Association, and if there was a need, they would call him, but he didn't have a church. And that's kind of, that's where he was when I popped up. And so, of course, every Sunday he's inviting me to church. Now, me, God was like, great story, but just a story.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, in my time in prison, and I did a lot of time in solitary, and from time to time, they would have to, they would get full enough to where they would have to have somebody in there with you. And if we were locked up in lockup and I found out you believed, dude, I would talk you out of it just for sport.
Faith killer.
Oh, man, like you wouldn't believe. And literally sit down and track stars and show you why it is you believe what you did, because I watched this, documentary way back when that made enough sense for me to explain it to enough to plant seeds of doubt in people. And I didn't even believe what I was saying. I just didn't want you to believe what you believed. Just
yeah.
A really sick person looking back at it. But, yeah. And, so when my dad invited me to church, I thought it was cute, and I really appreciated, him, wanting to invite me, because we didn't have the best relationship growing up. I was really hard on him because he wasn't my dad, and but declined. I mean, there was be no way that I would step foot in a church. But man, shout out to my dad, man. My stepdad, he just would not stop inviting me. Kind, compassionate, caring, patient, all the fruits of the Spirit too. And but just declined him every time. And like, you know, for me, I was like, it wasn't a key to anything. I really appreciated it, but you know, I'm good, man. Like, you know, going to NA, I don't want to do this anymore, so I don't need that. And then I remember my dad coming home one night, super excited about this thing, and so there was this guy to kind of set this whole thing up. So there was a guy named Brian, and Brian and my dad used to ride to seminary together. Like, they got their degrees together. And Brian was telling my dad one day that he was going to buy this little trailer and start a ministry in the back of his trailer park that he lived in. And he said, I'm going to buy this trailer. He's like, they're having auctions, and I'm going to go get it for $1. And like, my dad and the other guys that would ride together, like, kind of laughed the guy up. Well, anyway, Brian ended up buying this big old building for $1. Like, he got it, and he set this ministry up in the back of this, like, kind of a drug-addicted trailer park in the Waveland area. And Brian and my dad were really good friends. And so he comes home one night and he's like, hey, you got to go to church with me tonight. It was a Friday night. And he was like, Brian's having a men's night. And he said, they're trying to get some of the dads out, you know, in the trailer park to come. Because I guess in their ministry, the kids have been coming. But they couldn't get any of the parents. Yeah, I think the parents were using the church as like kind of babysitters, you know, so they could, you know, whatever. But
I've seen that.
Yeah. So they were like, we're going to cook steak tonight, and they're having a guest speaker, and we really want you to come, and, you know, let's go eat some steak and listen to this guy. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. And so that night he comes home, he's super excited even more, and he's got a steak for me. He's like, sit down and eat your steak, man. I'm going to tell you something. I'm like, what's up? And he's like, man, you should have been there tonight. Met this guy, the guest speaker. Dude, he's got tattoos like you. He'd been to jail like you. He was on drugs like you. And man, he's got this like faith-based, 20-step outpatient program in Waveland. And I was sharing with him, what you're dealing with, and he wants to meet you. And I told him I'd pay for it, and you need to go out there and meet this guy. And I was like, yeah, no, man, no, like, no, not at all. And he was like, well, here, and he gives me his card. And just kind of out of the strength of my dad being that willing, excited, and making the effort, I took the guy's card. And I remember taking it, like, I put it in my wallet in front of my dad. And if I wouldn't have done that, I probably would have thrown it away. But like, out of respect for him, I put it in my wallet. Never thought anything else about it. And then, so I'm doing good, man. Like, 3 months clean, I've got it figured out, right? Yeah. Like, I don't know what it is about 90 days, man. 90 days is so dangerous, right? Because we've won, right? It's over. And now we got to go help the world, like, at 90 days.
Save the world, and we are never, ever in danger of using again.
Never. No, we won.
I'm fully convinced. That is scary.
Yeah. So I was 90 days clean, so I was bulletproof, and I got a phone call. And my mom came in and she said, Kayla called. Now, Kayla is my oldest, and she was the one that was born in that first incarceration. And her mom was a good woman, and she was a little older than me. I was 18, and I was a part of Kayla's life in a big way up until around 5. And then somewhere along the way, her mom just perceived me to be the enemy, rightfully so, and just began to build really high walls around her that I could not get past.
She didn't see you as safe for her daughter?
No.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it was just, And so I had lost touch with her. And, that was my firstborn. And that was my baby girl. And I hadn't seen her in a long time. And hadn't heard from her in a really long time. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm on this journey, and my mom comes in there and she says, hey, she called. And I was like, shut up. And she was like, yeah, she called and left a message and said for you to call her back. And I'm like, man, of all the times for her to call, like, now's the best time. I'm not in jail.
Yeah.
I'm not on
Strung
drugs.
out, yeah.
I was strung out. And I'm like, yes. And I mean, like, dude, when I say I shot up, like, victory. And I call her. And I'm like bubbling. And she's like, hey, Mark. And I was like, what? She wouldn't call me Dad. And she said, I'm studying to be a paramedic. She said, you don't know that. She said, I'm about to graduate. She said, and we're studying overdoses. And I know you're a drug addict. And she said, you're probably going to die. And the last time I talked to you, I was really mean. So I just wanted to call you and tell you I love you. But I don't ever want to talk to you again. And she hung up. And bro, I didn't know how to take that. Like, I did not see that coming.
Right.
Like, I'm so full of myself, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, that's all I had done all my life was just serve me. And now when she called, like, in my mind, it couldn't have been anything but, you know.
Good.
Yeah. No.
Anything but.
Yeah. And so I was just like, man, it kneecapped me. And, you know, it's like you fight, you know, like we fight our whole life. And then we feel like we're really good fighters. And some of us may be. But I don't care how good you can take a punch. I don't care how good of a fighter you are. If I catch you coming around aisle 3 in Walmart with a can of corn, you're going to fold like a lawn chair, dude. When you don't see it coming. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't see that coming. And so I just, like, I had gained enough trust from my mom to drive the car from time to time, you know? And so I was just like, can I take a drive? And she was like, what'd she say? I was like, I just want to go take a drive. And so I did. And then I'm driving down the road and I see this guy walking down the road. And I could tell that he just got out of jail because he had a brown paper sack and you could just tell. Mm-hmm. And so now in a little town that I didn't know anybody, I picked some guy up on the side of the road and I had a friend. And like, he wanted to get high and I wanted to get high. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when we talk about like triggers, you know, and you'll get people that talk about like, you know, tinfoil or, you know, torches or you know, whatever. But like, how about waking up? That was a trigger for me.
Oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the bathroom. That was a trigger. How much drugs did we do in the bathroom?
Yeah. Leaving,
having somewhere to go. Like, you know, when you turn to something at every stage of your life, for grief, for comfort, for sadness, for, you know, excitement to go somewhere, to come home, to go to sleep, to get up. Matter. Yeah, I mean, you form a relationship with that. And that becomes something that you're dependent on. And in times where, you know, we're putting Band-Aids on stuff we need surgery for, and then like you get you begin to realize that it's not going to look like you thought it would. And then, you know, we're numb and just like incoherent through all of this, just creating wakes of disasters and trauma and problems and, you know, deception and just a mess behind us. And there's a lot of times in our life, and for anybody that's watching that's coming out of addiction, there are people in your life that you need to apologize for that you have no idea why you need to.
That's true.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Because like you say, we like to romanticize things.
Yes.
We like to romanticize our past.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things we've done.
You have any idea what the stuff you've caused.
We were blitzed.
Yeah. So, you know, pick this guy up. We go to some trap house and he went in and I'm just sitting out there in his car and now I'm by myself again and I'm just thinking like, what am I doing, man? Like, I got more than one child. And, you know, if that's ever going to be a possibility, I'm certainly not going to move towards that possibility doing this. Mm-hmm. And I'm in my mom's car.
So you didn't enjoy it?
I didn't get high.
Oh, you didn't get high. Amen.
No, I left the guy there. Yeah, I just pulled off, and but I was this close though.
Wow.
And so I ended up at a Wendy's parking lot, and dog, I'm girl crying. Like, I'm girl crying. Like, you got to understand, like, who can I tell about this? Like, I was bulletproof 30 minutes ago, and now I just pulled out of a trap house. Like, I can't go back and tell Mom. They're proud of me. They think I'm doing something. I'm not doing nothing, man. I'm on the verge of, like,
throwing 90 days
crashing out. Like, because I'm not just going to do that. Like, I'm going to crash out. Like, because I'm in a town that I don't know nobody, and as soon as that high goes down, I'm going to go kick the door in on that trap house, and just because they don't know me, you know. And like, yeah, no, it's bad. And I was so close. And like, you know, in early recovery, like when we are apart from God, apart from Christ, apart from being in relation, right, with Him, we work in early recovery to get validated by people around us, right? Like that is what we're working for. We're working for the validation of people around us. And then that's why when they don't see it right away, or when they need time, and we, you know, in our minds, we're like, well, I've decided, and so because I have, you need to be proud of me, right? And they're like, no. When in psychology tells us that, like, when you have lived that life and someone else has been kind of beside you or on, you know, the ringside watching it the whole time, it's going to take about 2 years of consistent behavior before they ever even begin to believe in what you're doing, you know, and we don't want to hear that.
But even the little bit, like you said, your parents were proud of you. Coming from a life where you're used to being the screw up, I'm speaking about myself here.
Oh yeah, maybe yeah.
When you start doing just a little good, it shows the danger of when you do need to talk to somebody about it, you're not going to, because then they might think like, wow, he doesn't really have it all together, when they don't think that to begin with. Yeah. But in our minds, you got to keep the facade up. Yeah,
because you've been pretending all your life, right? Yeah. And then you're just pretending to be okay.
And part of it's like, it feels good to have them smile at us and trust us a little bit. I don't know how to tell you that I don't have it all together, or that I need help.
Yeah.
No.
Or
and
that I'm hanging by a thread.
Thing. I mean, it all goes back to pride.
Yeah.
So,
and insecurities. Yeah. And you know, like, and really, like, when we look at it from a biblical standpoint, right? Like, what we don't want to tell them what's really happening, and we don't want to, you know, share the fact that we're human. Right. And really, and honestly, what we need in those times are, like, you know, watchmen on our wall.
Yes.
People beside us, walking before us, behind us, wise counsel that we can confess our sins to, that will pray with us and for us continually.
That will
walk us through this very uncertain time in our life that in the moment feels exactly like the desert, where we will come out of that bondage, right? And we're not understanding why we're here. We're complaining that we've even, or that where we're standing, and we're kind of half thinking about going back every other day. And like, we've got to have some Moseses in our life to just keep us moving forward through that uncertain time between bondage and promise, right? Like, it's a journey.
Well, because like looking back, in a best case scenario, you would have had somebody to call and say, hey, my daughter called. She wants to talk to me. Because anybody that's been doing this for a while, they know that phone call that you're about to make has a very good chance of spinning you out.
Right.
You don't realize that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody to help you navigate the potholes that you don't even know that you're walking in.
Right. Yeah. And I never, like, when I went to NA, they were talking about a sponsor and stuff. And like, for me, I didn't mess with anybody that had never been to prison.
Okay. I mean,
I don't know why, but like, if you hadn't, like, if I talk to you and you've never been to prison, like, I don't want you anywhere around me, because I don't know who you are. Like at least if I've known that you made it through prison, then you have a little something that if something pops off, I can stand. I don't know, man. I was institutionalized in a really big way. And And no, I didn't have anybody, but I'm sitting in that Wendy's parking lot, dude, and I'm crying, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, and then I remember he's got tattoos like you. He's been a drug. He's been on drugs like you. He's been in jail like you, and he wants to meet you. And I reached back in my wallet, and I had that dude's card. And I was like,
what have I got to lose?
let's call him.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed part 1 of this conversation. So please don't forget there will be a part 2 of our conversation with Marc Calvert. So please tune in next week for Jesus Loves Addicts.